to pray for your marketplace. And if you spend time sleeping out of tune with God, many things will happen in your marketplace that you would be accountable for, because God placed you in that marketplace. He placed you in that marketplace. Even when we run away from him and develop new marketplaces that he did not send us, you still have accountability wherever you are, because you're a child of God. And he's going to chasten those whom he loves. God still loved Jonah. God still loved Jonah. And verse 9. And he said unto him, I am an Hebrew. In other words, he worshiped Yahweh Elohim, which means the heavenly God of the Hebrews. I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord. Hear what he's saying. He says he fears the Lord, the God of heaven, which hath made the sea and the dry land. An admission is not a confession. I'll say that again. An admission is not a confession. He was responding to the questions that the sailors, the mariners, posed to him. He recognized he was in dire straits. Verse 10. Then there were the men exceedingly afraid. You realize in verse 5, it says the mariners were afraid. At that time, they were afraid of the tempest. But now, they had a different fear, and that was the fear of God. And they said unto him, why hast thou done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord, because he told them. He confessed to them. Verse 11. Then said they unto him, what shall we do unto thee, that the sea may be calm unto us? For the sea wrought and was tempestuous. They needed to solve the problem. The first time they wanted to solve the problem, they lightened the boat. It didn't work. The second time, they prayed together. Each man called upon his own God. That didn't work. Third, who is responsible for this situation? And now, we are seeing that they have a different situation. They have to decide what to do with Jonah, because he's the problem that is causing the tempest. And he said unto them, take me up and cast me forth into the sea. Now one would think that he knew what caused the tempest. He disobeyed God. God has sent him to Nineveh. And you would think that now his sin had been exposed because he lacked compassion as a child of God. One would think that he would tell them, well, take me back to Joppa so I can go and do what God has told me to do. We see a degree of arrogance. He still refused to even entertain obeying God. He would rather die. So now, he had no compassion for the people in Nineveh. He had no compassion for himself. He even had no compassion for the mariners. And this is what happens sometimes. God uses people who are less thought of to show us compassion, even as Christians. We're going to see what's going to happen now that demonstrates this. It says, nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring it to land. In other words, they didn't decide to throw him overboard at the same time. They had compassion on him. They were thinking about him. Should we do this? Should we do that? Let's try our best to get this ship to land. The men demonstrated compassion, whereas Jonah still had a hardened heart, despite he was supposed to be a child of God. Brothers and sisters, we have to be careful. When obedience steps in, it erodes our faith. When obedience steps in, it creates insensitivity to our responsibility as children of God. When this steps in, disobedience, it causes us to be numb with compassion. Numb with compassion. Or God's will for our lives is blurred because we are self-righteous. We are believing that it is not for me. That task is not for me. You are, in other words, putting yourself over God. You are saying, I am wiser than God. You are saying, I don't trust God. And when we do this, our testimony is exposed. Our testimony is challenged. Clearly, when the men questioned Jonah, they realized he was a prophet and he had abandoned his God. He was a hypocrite.